Oh yeah, tell you something, I think you understand. Yeah, tell you something, I wanna hold your hand. And to anyone who's saying, shouldn't it be drive my car because you're driving a car? Shut the fuck up. Anyway, welcome to StillerBros at the Movies. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to see a movie that is not part of a major franchise, a movie that is probably not the start to a major franchise. Ladies and gentlemen, Yesterday. When are we going to see it? Today. It's interesting. Although it'll probably be yesterday when this video goes. Although it'll probably be yesterday at the time this video goes up. Did we just blow your minds? But this is probably one of the most original movies to come out this year. It's got the kind of premise that you hear about, and then you immediately want to see the movie, which is probably why Richard Curtis, the writer of Love Actually, wrote the movie. Because it's just because the premise, the second you hear it, a guy is the only one who remembers the Beatles songs. So he takes the opportunity and becomes the Beatles, basically. And that's the premise. It's a very simple premise, and it's a very compelling premise, because I don't think I'm the only one who's ever had the fantasy of, if I could go back in time to before these people wrote these incredibly famous songs, I would write these songs and become famous. Yeah. It's not always the Beatles, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people have this fantasy. Especially a lot of struggling musicians out in the world right now are like, have a list of songs they wish they would written, so why not make them the best songs written by one of the best bands to ever exist? And so this movie has a lot going for it in the premise alone. It's a strong thought process, obviously, and it's great. And it's amazing that this movie even exists in its current form, because the Beatles they're famously protective of their songs, so it's very difficult to get their songs. It's expensive to get it's expensive to pay the rights for an original Lennon and McCartney track. And obviously it's a little hard to get to Harrison, because you have to go through his estate. I'm sure Ringo would be happy for the paycheck, but unfortunately he wrote like one or two, only like two of the most popular Beatles songs. Yeah. But ultimately, everything just kind of everything that needed to come together came together. And especially when you have an Academy Award winning director like Danny Boyle at the helm. The thing is, Danny Boyle's filmography has kind of gotten eclectic since Slumdog Millionaire. He went back to the well for Trainspotting 2. He directed 127 Hours. He was gonna direct Bond 25 until he dropped out of that for creative differences, because that's the big reason that a lot of directors drop out of projects. He did Steve Jobs, which being an Aaron Sorkin film was probably the most different is probably one of the most interesting of his movies. But now he's going to a completely different place. This is not a prestige picture by any means. This is a romantic comedy from the guy who gave us Love Actually and About Time and all kinds of other British romantic comedies. So it's got that going for it. Also, this movie has probably got... Also, the biggest thing this movie probably has going for it is it does not really have a lot of star power behind it. Ed Sheeran, Kate McKinnon, Lily James... and James Corden are probably the biggest names on here. And it's very safe to assume that James Corden and Orden is probably going to be, and Ed Sheeran play very minimalistic roles in this movie, considering they're both playing themselves out of all of them. But the lead actor is Himesh Patel. Himesh Patel? Wow. But his biggest claim to fame is he was on a British soap opera for 4 years, and this is his first feature film. So that's a big thing. And then obviously the biggest qualification they had for this was that the guy needs to be able to act the part, and he needs to be able to play and sing the Beatles songs, which he does. And and from what we've heard so far, he's actually pretty good at it. And they have him touring, playing Beatles songs. He's singing. Like he sang yesterday on Kimmel, and he sang yesterday at Abbey Road Studios for a promotional video. So he's just kind of, so they're basically just kind of like, let's get this kid jumping around. Let's, because they know that there's not, that Ed Sheeran is probably the biggest draw to this, and he's got a cameo at best, probably. And he's probably got an extended cameo at best, playing himself.
But majority of this is not star power, so it's very similar to Slumdog Millionaire, where he doesn't have big actors to draw in a crowd.
And also kind of train spotting in the first train spotting when it was just when Ewan McGregor and Robert Carlyle and
Johnny Lee Miller
and all these other guys did not have these other projects where people would be like, hey, I know him from that. Ewan McGregor especially, of course, but yeah. In the end, this movie has a lot going for it in premise alone. I mean, the second the trailer came out, everyone was like, have you heard of this movie? It looks really cool.
It's like and again, on premise alone, it's one of those it's just one of those concepts where on premise alone, you hear the premise and immediately in your head you want to see how that plays out.
And yeah, no star power basically, except for the guys who made it. So, unless you're a diehard film fan, you wouldn't care much about, other than the fact that it has from the director of Slumdog Millionaire and the writer of Love Actually, and you'd think, what the hell kind of pairing is that? It's really hard to pick a Danny Boyle movie that would match.
Yeah.
Naturally, just went with the best reviewed one.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were kind of going on a little bit of a loop here, so we're just gonna see you guys after the jump. We'll see you after we see the movie.
Yep. Bye.
So I've said it before, and I'm gonna say it again. It's kind of hard to talk about a movie when it does pretty much everything it wanted to do.
It pretty much I mean, if you just the second you heard the premise, you kind of know what movie you're getting. So if you heard the premise and you want to go see and hit off that alone, then yeah, go see it.
And if you wanted to go see it off the strength of the pedigree of the writer and the director, then you're probably gonna get what you want. I mean, it may be a very conventional movie when it comes down to it when it comes to Danny Boyle's filmography, but it's still got a bit of his flair here and there. Here, just to remind you, this movie is kind of an art piece.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting look at certain things. Obviously, we don't delve too deep into what would happen if the Beatles music never existed.
That mostly because it's not a movie about the world that we're living in, that we live in without the Beatles.
It's not, especially since by the fact that there's about a 20-minute stretch where there's not really much about the music. It's not about the music.
Basically, when it comes down to it, it's a love story between Himesh Patel and Lily James's characters, and that's all you would expect. And yeah, it's a romantic comedy. It's a very good romantic comedy. Richard Curtis is good at that.
I mean, you look at Richard Curtis's filmography, you don't expect him to make a bad rom-com from everything he's made.
And there's a lot of great little bits of his usual flourishes. There's the cute little dialogue bits that are like ripped straight out of the Love Actually playbook. There's the occasional little cringy joke like, well, that's the difference between Jay-Z and JY.
And it's just very quintessentially a British film.
Oh yeah, especially the fact that there's only one major American actor in the entire main cast, but Kate McKinnon sells the hell out of it.
Especially at the very end when she gets to open it up and go batshit crazy.
So that's Kate McKinnon in a nutshell in this movie. Himesh Patel, he's really good at this, good at playing the Beatles song, at singing the Beatles songs. He's good at all this. Every scene he's in is really good because he's such a good actor. He's got a few funny bits. He's got great chemistry with Lily James.
It's a very good first movie for him. So he's got other stuff on the way, and we'll see what happens there.
Ed Sheeran, we never saw him in Game of Thrones. We never really paid much attention to his scene in Game of Thrones. We are aware that it happened, and we saw it.
And we are aware that people hated it just because Ed Sheeran took everybody out of the moments.
But he's actually really good in this movie for the moments he's in. Even though he's playing himself.
Yeah. He's probably one of the more comedic centers of the movie, and we do get an Ed Sheeran song at the very end.
In fact, all the songs that he writes for, when they announced he was going to be in this movie, they said he was probably going to write a couple songs for it, and yeah, he did write a couple songs for it. So, and they're not on the soundtrack, so I'm assuming they're probably going to be put out individually at some point. I don't know. But they're really good. They're good. So there's some original music in there to actually remind you that there are songs not written by the Beatles for a minute or two.
Daniel Pemberton's score is really good. It really captures the Beatles' essence.
If it's not directly throwing something from the Beatles at you, it is throwing some pretty good ambient music. Like I said, Danny Boyle, while he is basically making your standard romantic comedy, he does also have a lot of his own visual flourishes. Like occasionally we will see the world from kind of the character of Jack's perspective, where he'll kind of see words and stuff like that floating through as he's remembering all these Beatles songs that he needs to write down.
Because that's a good thing that the movie does well, where he doesn't remember everything about the Beatles songs.
It would be so easy for this to be about a Beatles super fan who just knows all the songs by heart, backwards and forwards, and he just eases his way into this. But no, the thing that this movie does kind of unexpectedly, because they didn't really talk about this in the trailers, is that he doesn't remember every line to every song, so he needs to...
So the second he realizes, oh, I could do this, it's like, do I remember... Oh shit! I don't remember Eleanor Rigby at all.
So he needs to sit down. So there's actually a montage of him sitting down, playing through all the songs, and being like, "What was it again? What was this lyric again?"
And even then, throughout the entire movie, he's still struggling to get these lyrics right.
And there's whole chunks of the movie and there's whole pieces of the movie where he's like, where suddenly a small bit of a Beatles song will flow through. Like there's a sequence, where Hello Goodbye just suddenly pops into his head and everything like that. And also, I don't want to spoil this, but there's a little cameo from a Danny Boyle regular, dearie.
And we have kind of a funny running joke throughout the entire movie of the Beatles not being the only thing that disappeared in this world. Some of them are for the best, some of them probably for the worst.
Yeah. But I swear to God, I wrote a sketch like 3 days ago that it kind of was in the movie.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I did not know that joke was going to be in the movie. And so, yeah,
there's not much else to talk about. That's pretty... Again, you get what you're expecting when you go see this movie.
Yeah, there's a list of stuff in the movie that it's just like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted.
You get what you paid for.
And it's not going to win any awards. It's not going to change anyone's minds, but it's a fantastic movie. It makes you feel good for a couple hours, and that's all you can really ask for from this.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking rom-coms. Rom-coms are great when they're done well, but it's a really good movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do with that what you will, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess that's it for now, guys, but we'll be back in a couple days.
Yeah.
Because we got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, so be sure to like and subscribe. Sorry if this one's a little shorter, but like I said, it's hard to talk about this stuff, but be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to tune in next time when we get a little far from home. Actually, no further than we usually do. It's the same usual theater. Bye.
Yep, bye.